What's going on, guys? It's Ken. I'm back with another video. Today, I want to go into Studio One, open up Plugin Doctor, and talk about Pultec style EQs and what their curves actually look like, because it's a very interesting type and style of EQ. So if we go into Studio One, I got Plugin Doctor open with the UAD Pultec EQP 1A. All right. If you guys open up a Pultec EQ, you'll notice that it's a little strange because you have a boost and an attenuation for both the same frequency band, which may seem a little strange. Like, why would you want to be doing both at once? Well, it's because the way that the curves work, they actually work really well together, and it gives you that famous, well-known curve and sound. So first off, I'll go over basically how the buttons and how the knobs are paired together. So it's basically all in a triangle, all right? Boost, attenuation, and this frequency knob are all paired in this triangle. The bandwidth, boost, and this frequency knob are all paired together in this triangle. And then the attenuation is for this attenuation selection knob. So when you're attenuating and cutting, you're not cutting these frequencies. You're actually cutting this selection of frequencies, 5, 10, and 20. A lot of people don't know that. And it makes sense because what other knob would control this selection? But what a lot of people also don't know is that the bandwidth doesn't control these frequencies. They actually control the high end. So we're going to take a look at that in a second. Let's first go over the low end though. So I have Plugin Doctor open on the linear analysis. That's really what we're going to be focusing on for this video. We're not really going to be looking at too much harmonic analysis. So everything is flat right now. You can see though that there is, once you get towards about 10K, it starts to roll off very slightly, but it is not that significant until you get to like 20K, and then after that you really can't hear much. But one thing to note is that the default plugin is boosting the signal. You can see that the line is not at 0 dB. It's actually boosted at over a decibel, around a decibel. That's something to keep in mind. That's why, if you notice, right when you just enable a Pultec, like especially this UAD Pultec EQ, everything seems to get a little louder. And that's because the default is actually boosting the signal by about a decibel. Now, I'm going to cycle through the frequencies. I'll start at 20, and I'm going to start raising the boost. You guys are going to see what's going to happen. It's looking like a shelf filter so far. Now, when I raise it to 5 at 20 hertz, you can see that it's basically a low shelf, but it's going... The middle is about at 20 hertz, but it's still getting boosted. Even like at 100 hertz, you're getting about a 4 decibel boost. Pretty, I should say, wide shelf, because it's boosting a lot more than just 20 hertz. Even if you go, and remember, 1 decibel boost is our base for the whole entire frequency spectrum. So if you go all the way up to 200 hertz, 200 hertz is still getting about a 1 decibel extra boost, even at 20 hertz. So that's something to keep in mind. If we go to 30, now you can see everything just starts moving to the right. If we go to 60, same thing, everything starts moving to the right. If we go all the way to 100, you can see that at 100 hertz, it's an 8.5 decibel boost. But after the default, taking into consideration the default setting, it's actually a 7.5 decibel difference. If you go all the way to 1,000 hertz, you're at a 2 decibel increase difference. Even at 1,000 hertz, you're still boosting a little bit at 1,000 hertz. Let's take a look at like 750 hertz. You're still boosting around 3 extra decibels. So it's something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to bring it down to 60 hertz on the plugin. Keep this at 5, and then I'm going to start bringing up the attenuation Let's try to take a look at where it's actually cutting. So it's cutting in the mid range, not necessarily the low end. If I go halfway on both of them, you can see that it's doing the majority of cutting at 700 hertz. It's cutting about 2.3 decibels, technically 3.3, since the default was over 0 dB. So if we go halfway and halfway, you're getting this cut at around 700 hertz. So that's why sometimes when you do a boost and a cut with this plugin, you get more of like a, it sounds like you're adding more bass, because if you're going to cut the mid-range, the bass is going to sound a little bit louder because you're cutting that mid-range, right? It's going to sound a little bit more deep. If we move the frequency to 100, you can see that everything shifts over. So even the cut now shifts to around 1200, and the boost also shifts over to the right as well. Now the high end doesn't necessarily change too much. It's still at around a decibel where the default was. But I mean, even with both of these halfway, you can see that the curve is significantly changed. Let's bring this down to 2 and 2. And you can see that it's actually flat. So 2 and 2 makes it flat, which is interesting. If we bring it to 0 and 0, it's flat again. If you bring the boost up 2, you're boosting a little bit more. But then if you actually bring the attenuation up to 2, you have a flat curve. This brings you a flat curve. Now, what if you bring the boost down and you bring the attenuation up? Now, interestingly enough, if you attenuate with the frequency selection at 100, you actually get everything to be back at around 0 decibels default, but then you're actually still boosting the top end at around, it starts to really pick up at around 4K, and then at 15K, you're almost boosted 1 decibel. So even just attenuating a little bit, you might actually get a brighter sound because you're kind of boosting a little bit more on the high end. If we bring this down to 60, the high end is actually getting boosted a little bit more. If we bring it down to 30, a little bit more of the high end is getting boosted. And if you bring it to 20, even more is getting boosted. So even just attenuating and not boosting at all in the plugin is actually gonna get you a brighter sound potentially. Now let's go over to the high end. Okay, I'm gonna keep everything. I'm gonna keep the bandwidth just 0 sharp, and I'll keep the frequency at 3000. I'm gonna start boosting, and you can see that it's a pretty sharp and narrow band. If we go to 5, about 3K is getting boosted. It's around 6.5 decibels, 6.4 decibels. If we bring this up, it obviously just starts to move to a higher frequency, right? But once you get to 16, it actually gets a little thinner, okay? Now I'm going to keep it back at 3. I'm going to start attenuating now. Keep in mind that this attenuation is at 10K. I'm going to bring the attenuation up to 5. So we're doing 5 and 5 again. Attenuation's at 10K. Let's bring it down to 5K. Now, technically 5K, interestingly enough, 3K is still getting boosted, but there's a little bit of a cut going on at 1000. So the 3K range might actually seem even louder because you're cutting what's before it and what's after it, all right? Now, if we bring this up to 10, everything before 3K is the same, and then 10K, this is what we were just looking at. If we bring it to 20K, now bringing it to 20K, interestingly enough, actually boosts 3K even more than if it was at 10K. So technically, if you want to boost even more 3K, you don't even really have to go higher on the boost. You could just bring this to 20, right? Now let's bring this down a little bit. Let's do 2 and 2 again, right? So with attenuation at 10, this is how it looks. And then if we keep attenuating, that's what's going to happen. If we keep boosting, you're going to keep boosting that 3K range. What I want to do is now I want to start to adjust the bandwidth and make it more broad. So we're going to go slowly adjust this And as we get to about, we're at 9 right now, but if we go all the way broad, it's almost flat. So I'm going to keep it at all the way broad at 10. Keep boosting. And now at about 5 and 2 attenuation, it is a 3.5 boost at 2.5, 2.7K. If we keep moving this up, you can see how it starts to look. And then I'm going to put it at 8K, 20 attenuation, boost it a little bit more. And then once again, if you bring the attenuation down to 5K, you're actually cutting a little bit at around 1500. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that these curves work together. You know, I feel like this analysis is good because you actually get to see what the plugin's doing. Sometimes it's hard to actually hear it, but training your ear to be able to hear it after seeing what's going on is really important in my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe. If you guys have any questions, make sure to also let me know in the comment section below. I'm always available for mixing and mastering. If you guys are interested, check out the links in the description below. Once again, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.